Brother Captain Acastian Vey remembered the death of a world he had never seen. He remembered standing beneath a violet sky while oceans boiled beyond mountains of black glass. He remembered a sun swollen to impossible size, filling half the heavens with a red and furious light. He remembered cities whose towers were not built by human hands collapsing one after another as orbital fire crossed the atmosphere in perfect lines. He remembered holding a sword large enough that no space marine could have wielded it. He remembered looking down and seeing golden armor, not the gold of the Adeptus custodes, something older, something unfinished. And he remembered the Emperor of mankind standing before him, not enthroned, not silent, not the divine corpse of Terra's holiest icons. Alive, walking, watching him with eyes that seemed to contain the weight of every human life yet to be born. Then the memory ended, with the Emperor saying a name Acastian could never retain. Every time he woke, the name was gone. Every time he slept, it returned. Acastian opened his eyes in darkness. For 3 seconds, he did not know where he was. His right hand had already closed around the hilt of the combat blade beneath his stone cot. His secondary heart was beating faster than his primary. Warning runes scrolled across the retinal display of his left eye, informing him of elevated adrenaline, abnormal neural activity, and an unnecessary combat response. The chamber smelled of iron, machine oil, and old incense. He was aboard the battle barge Unbroken Oath. He was Brother Captain Acastian Vey, of the 5th Brotherhood of the Sable Lions. He had served the Emperor for 214 years. He had killed greenskins on Gethsemar, the servants of the ruinous powers on Beleros, Xenos raiders in the Calyx Reach, and rebels upon worlds whose names had long since been reduced to numbers in administratum archives. He had never seen a violet sky. He had never stood beside the living Emperor, and he had certainly never worn golden armor. Acastian released the knife. The chronometer engraved into the wall showed that 17 minutes remained before the ship's artificial dawn cycle. He remained seated. Space Marines required little sleep, yet what little they took was meant to sharpen them. His dreams had ceased to do that. For the last 71 days, sleep had become another battlefield. At first, there had been fragments, a voice, a flash of light, the sensation of enormous hands closing around the throat of something serpentine. Then the fragments became scenes, and the scenes became memories. Not dreams. Acastian knew dreams. Every warrior who survived long enough accumulated ghosts. Brothers torn apart by plasma. Civilians burning behind barricades. The shriek of bolter fire inside metal corridors. The last expression on an enemy's face when his skull broke beneath a gauntlet. Dreams distorted such things. These visions did not. They possessed texture, weight, sequence. He knew where doors stood in palaces he had never visited. He knew the taste of dust on Terra before the Imperial palace had swallowed mountains. He remembered dialects that had been extinct since the Great Crusade. Once, after waking, he had written a phrase from one of the dreams. The chapter's lex mechanic had identified the words as a variant of Urshite battle cant, preserved in only 3 sealed archaeological repositories. Acastian had never accessed any of them. After that, he stopped recording the memories. A soft chime sounded. The chamber door opened. Apothecary Malrek entered without ceremony. His white armor appeared gray beneath the lumen strips. The red helix upon his shoulder plate had been scratched by centuries of war, and the narthecium attached to his left vambrace still bore a deep groove from the talon of a tyrannid warrior. Malrek looked at Acastian. "You were awake before I arrived. I often am. That is not an answer. It was not intended as one." The apothecary stepped closer. "Another vision." Acastian said nothing. Malrek's expression tightened. That alone betrayed how serious the matter had become. Space Marine faces rarely communicated in the subtle language of baseline humanity. Their emotions were weapons kept behind armor. Malrek had been Acastian's friend for 160 years. He knew when silence meant yes. How vivid. More than before. "What did you see?" Acastian stood. "I have duties." "Your duties are irrelevant if your gene seed is degrading." Acastian turned. The words struck harder than an accusation of cowardice. Among the Adeptus Astartes there were failures that could be forgiven. Tactical misjudgment, rage, even on rare occasions retreat. Corruption of the gene seed was different. The gene seed was ancestry made flesh. It connected every battle brother to the Primarch from whom his lineage descended. The Sable Lions traced their blood to Rogal Dorn. At least that was what every catechism declared. Their fortress monastery contained a stone hall where the names of 10,000 dead were carved beneath a towering statue of the Praetorian of Terra. Every neophyte placed his hand upon the statue's foot before receiving the black carapace. Dorn was endurance. Dorn was loyalty. Dorn was the wall upon which treachery broke. To suggest corruption in his inherited legacy was almost blasphemy. Malrek did not look away. "You asked me to investigate. I asked you because I trusted you, and I am telling you what I have found." Acastian's expression hardened. "You told me there was no mutation." "There is no mutation. Then the matter is closed." "No." Malrek removed a data slate from his belt. Acastian stared at it. The apothecary activated the display. Gene seed helix patterns appeared. Complex strands rotated slowly in the air. Acastian recognized nothing. His expertise lay in war, not genetic science. Malrek enlarged several sequences. "Your progenoid profile is stable. Os modula functioning normally. Biscopea normal. Hemastamen normal. Laramens organ within expected range. No degradation in the catalepsian node. No warp taint markers. No chemical contamination. No xenos parasitic signatures." You have just listed every reason this conversation should end. I also compared your sample with the chapter vault. Acastian watched him. Malrek continued. Then I compared it against the archived samples of our honored dead. And Malrek hesitated. That frightened Acastian more than anything he had said. "And the structure is identical." "Of course it is. To every sample." Acastian frowned. "Explain." "No genetic lineage remains perfectly identical for 9,000 years. Not at this level. Minor drift occurs even in the most stable chapters. Environmental stress, replication variance, preservation errors, implantation generations. Yet our samples do not merely match lineage expectations." Malrek looked directly into his eyes. "They are copies." Silence filled the chamber. Acastian slowly folded his arms. "You are saying our apothecarian falsified its records. I am saying something much worse." "Speak!" "The oldest sample in the vault dates to the chapter's founding." "Yes, I examined it. And it is not old." Acastian felt something cold settle inside his chest. Malrek changed the display. A microscopic image appeared. Preservation damage can be measured. Protein decay, molecular fracture, radiation exposure. Even under stasis conditions, there are signs. The sample identified as belonging to first chapter Master Gaius Mordain is perhaps 400 years old. Acastian stared at him. Mordain died 9,000 years ago. So our histories say. You tested incorrectly. 4 times. Then the sample was replaced. Why? Acastian had no answer. Malrek deactivated the slate. I believe the dreams are related. You have no evidence. I have one more thing. Malrek looked toward the chamber door. He walked to it, pressed the seal, and manually locked it. Then he turned. When you gave me your latest blood sample, I ran a deeper mitochondrial ancestry comparison. Acastian waited. Malrek's next words came quietly. Our gene seed does not match Rogal Dorn. For several seconds, Acastian heard only the engine vibration traveling through the deck. The statement was so extreme that it almost ceased to possess meaning. Then anger arrived, fast, pure. His hand closed around Malrek's gorget. He lifted the Apothecary from the deck and drove him against the stone wall. Ceramite struck stone hard enough to crack it. Malrek did not resist. Take that back. I cannot. You speak treason. I speak evidence. Our blood is Dorn's. I believe that too. You are wrong. I hope I am. Acastian tightened his grip. Say it. Malrek's voice remained calm. If you kill me, the result does not change. The chamber seemed smaller. Acastian released him. Malrek landed heavily. Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Acastian asked, What does it match? That is the problem. Malrek adjusted his armor. It matches nothing I can access. You have the chapter's genetic archives. Yes. Successor registries? Those permitted to an apothecary of my rank. Then perhaps our gene seed is derived from a line whose records are sealed. Possible. Acastian turned away. He looked toward the small shrine set into the chamber wall. A black iron fist rested upon a field of gold. The symbol of Dorn. The symbol Acastian had worn since childhood. He remembered kneeling before it as a neophyte. He remembered the chaplain reciting the lineage. From the Emperor came the Primarch. From the Primarch came the Legion. From the Legion came the chapter. From the chapter came the battle brother. Blood was memory. Blood was duty. Blood was truth. If Malrek was correct, then someone had replaced truth with a lie 9,000 years ago. Who knows? Acastian asked. You and I. Keep it that way. I already have. Acastian looked back. What do you believe the visions are? Malrek considered his answer. Genetic memory is mostly metaphor. Gene seed carries traits, tendencies, biological templates. It does not carry detailed recollections of specific events. Mostly, there are exceptions, psychic resonance, imprinted trauma. Some lineages report inherited sensations. Blood angels experience echoes of sanguinius. Certain space wolves claim memories that may not be their own. But what you describe is too precise. Then they are not memories. I did not say that. Acastian's eyes narrowed. Malrek continued. I said they should not be possible. The ship-wide vox chimed. A deep, mechanical voice filled the chamber. Brother Captain Vey, report to the Strategium, priority Crimson. Acastian stared at the wall shrine one last time. Then he unlocked the chamber. Destroy the test results. Malrek followed him into the corridor. I already did. The unbroken oath was 5 kilometers of armor, guns, and prayer moving through the void. Its corridors had known war for more than 6,000 years. Brass plaques listed campaigns forgotten by the Administratum. Reliquaries held the finger bones of heroes. Servitors crawled through maintenance alcoves while sensors released smoke before machines whose original builders had been dead for millennia. The Sable Lions were not a large chapter. Few were, any longer. The Great Rift had split the galaxy, wars had consumed recruitment worlds, and entire brotherhoods had vanished in the dark between stars. 612 battle brothers remained. Of those, 108 traveled aboard the Unbroken Oath. Their current mission had begun as a routine response to an astropathic distress signal. Nothing about the Imperium was routine. A mining world, designated Kharon Secundus, had gone silent after transmitting a repeating message from its northern polar region. The signal contained no words, only coordinates. Then came a second transmission. This one had been encoded using a Sable Lions cipher. A cipher, retired 8,000 years before. The Strategium doors opened. Chapter. Master Merrick Ardan stood at the central hololith. He was one of the oldest living members of the chapter outside the dreadnought sarcophagi. His armor was black, edged in bronze, with a lion's skull fixed to the breastplate. His face resembled weathered stone. Around him stood Librarian Solon, Chaplain Tarvek, Tech Marine Orias, and several veteran officers. A rotating image of Kharon Secundus filled the chamber. Ardan looked at Acastian. "You took your time. 27 seconds from summons." "Then I have grown impatient." Acastian approached. "What has happened?" The chapter master expanded the hololith. The world vanished. A symbol replaced it. Acastian stopped. It was a circle divided by a vertical line. On either side, 2 downward-pointing blades. He had seen it before. Not aboard the ship, not in any archive, in the dreams. Acastian kept his face still. Ardan noticed anyway. "You recognize it?" "No. You hesitated." "I was considering its construction." Librarian Solon turned his pale eyes toward him. The librarian had always made Acastian uncomfortable. Not because he was a psyker. The chapter had trusted its librarius for millennia. It was because Solon looked at men as though listening to conversations they did not know they were having. "The symbol came from the surface," Ardan said. "What does it mean?" "We do not know." Acastian looked around the chamber. "Then why priority crimson?" Ardan changed the display. A text string appeared. It was brief. "Brotherhood of the Last Sun. Come home." Acastian felt his blood go cold. Tarvek crossed his arms. "The transmission used our oldest encryption protocol." "How old?" "Records indicate early M32. "Impossible." "So I told the machine." Tech Marine Orias emitted something resembling irritation through his vocal synthesizer. The machine remained unconvinced. Acastian looked at Ardan. "Could the enemy have stolen the code?" "Theoretically." "Chaos?" "Always possible." "Xenos mimicry?" "Possible." "A trap?" Ardan smiled without humor. "Certain." The hololith returned to the planet. Kharon Secundus was a barren mining world whose surface had been cut by industrial trenches over thousands of years. 40 million laborers extracted rare metals from its crust, beneath administratum quotas, designed by officials who would never see it. Or had. No human life signs had been detected since the Unbroken Oath entered orbit. "What happened to the population?" Acastian asked. "No bodies visible from orbit," Orias replied. "No thermal signatures, no functioning reactors, no distress beacons beyond the northern transmission." "Evacuated?" "No ships departed." "Massacre?" "No battlefield signatures." Ardan magnified the northern pole. A storm covered the region. Beneath it, Auspex returns revealed geometric structures. Acastian leaned closer. The mines were old. The structures beneath them were older, much older. A ring several kilometers across surrounded a central shaft, descending beyond scan depth. The same divided circle symbol had been carved into the rock at a scale visible from orbit. "We deploy in 30 minutes, Ardan said. "Strength? 30. Too few if the population has been compromised. Too many if we are walking into an exterminatus-class trap." Ardan looked at Acastian. "You will command the descent." Acastian nodded. "Librarian Solon accompanies you." He glanced at the Psyker. Solon's expression did not change. Apothecary Malrek as well. That caught Acastian's attention. Ardan continued. "Whatever happened below, I want biological samples." "Understood." Tarvek stepped forward. "I should accompany them." "No." The chaplain looked at the chapter master. "If this is corruption, you will remain aboard." Tarvek did not like the order, but he obeyed. Acastian looked again at the symbol. The memory came without warning. A golden hand, not his, not human in scale, pressing against a stone door, the same symbol carved into its surface. The Emperor beside him, a voice saying, "Do you understand why this must be forgotten?" Acastian staggered. His gauntlet struck the hololith projector. The image flickered. Every warrior in the chamber looked at him. Malrek moved first. "Acastian." The memory vanished. He found himself gripping the projector hard enough to deform the metal. "I am functional." Solon approached slowly. "That was not pain." Acastian looked at him. "What was it?" The librarian's voice became quieter. "Recognition." Acastian said nothing. Solon's pupils expanded. For the briefest instant, Acastian felt something touch the edge of his mind. He reacted instinctively. "Stay out of my head." The words were almost a growl. Solon stopped. Ardan's gaze moved between them. "What is happening?" "Nothing," Acastian said. Malrek answered at the same moment. "We need to speak privately." Acastian turned toward him. The betrayal was small. It still felt like betrayal. Ardan dismissed the others. Only Malrek, Solon, and Acastian remained. The chapter master waited. Malrek spoke. He told him everything. The dreams, the tests, the false age of the gene seed samples, the incompatible genetic markers. Ardan did not interrupt once. When Malrek finished, the silence lasted nearly a minute. Then Ardan asked, "How long?" 71 days. His gaze fixed on Acastian. "You concealed this from me." "Yes." "Why?" "Because there was no evidence of corruption." "You experienced memories of the Great Crusade." "I experienced visions." "You recognized the symbol." Acastian's jaw tightened. "Yes." "What is it?" "I do not know." "What do you remember?" Acastian hesitated. Ardan stepped closer. "That was not a request from your chapter master. It was an order." Acastian described the violet world. The golden armor, the living emperor, the stone door, the nameless voice. Solon listened with increasing intensity. Ardan's face became unreadable. When Acastian finished, the chapter master walked to the viewing port. Kharon Secundus floated below them. "Do you know why the Sable Lions have no records before the third founding?" Acastian frowned. "We were founded during the third. That is what the histories say." Ardan looked back. "I have commanded this chapter for 308 years. I have read every text available to my office. There is no founding writ." Acastian stared at him. No decree from the High Lords. None. No gene seed authorization. None. No record from the Imperial fists. References exist. None contemporary with our creation. Malrek slowly said, You knew. I suspected. How long? Since I became chapter master. Acastian stepped toward him. And you told no one. Ardan's eyes hardened. Do not speak to me about concealment today. That ended the accusation. Ardan returned to the hololith. There is more. He entered a code. The strategium sealed. A section of the floor opened, and a small pedestal rose. Upon it rested a key. Not a data key, a physical object. Black metal, 15 centimeters long. The divided circle symbol had been engraved upon its head. Acastian's breath stopped. The memory came again. A corridor of white stone. His hands were enormous. The key rested in his palm. The Emperor said, One day they may come for what remains. Acastian blinked. The key was still there. Ardan watched him. This object is passed from chapter master to chapter master. What does it open? No one knows. Where did it come from? No one knows. What were you told? Only one sentence. Ardan lifted the key. When the buried lion calls, carry this to the door beneath the dead world. Malrek looked at Kharon Secundus. Acastian understood. So you already knew we were coming here? No. But I knew someday we might. Solon stared at the key. There is psychic residue. Ardan held it toward him. The librarian reached out. The instant his fingers touched the metal, every lumen in the strategium exploded. Darkness. A roar of psychic force struck the room. Acastian found himself somewhere else. He was not alone. He stood in a vast chamber beneath mountains. 20 figures surrounded a circular table. No, not 20. 18. No. The number changed whenever he tried to count them. Some were familiar from statues and forbidden histories. A giant with wings, a pale lord with dark hair, a warrior with a face like carved granite, a golden giant radiating impossible charisma. Others blurred when Acastian looked directly at them. One stood beside him, tall even among Primarchs. His armor was dark bronze. A lion's skull formed one pauldron. Not the lion of Caliban, another lion, older, its jaw longer, its forehead marked by a vertical line. The Emperor stood at the head of the table. No record, he said. Someone argued. The speaker's face vanished whenever Acastian attempted to see it. No monument. Another voice. Father. No legion name. The bronze-armored Primarch slammed his fist against the table. The stone cracked. You cannot erase 10,000 suns. The Emperor looked at him. I can erase anything necessary for humanity to survive. Acastian felt the Primarch's rage, not as an observer, as though it were his own. Then came grief, crushing grief. Then erase me. The Emperor did not answer. The vision shattered. Acastian woke on the strategium floor. Alarms screamed. Solon was on his knees. Blood ran from his nose and ears. Ardan stood over the key. Malrek was shouting something. Acastian could not hear him. One sentence remained inside his head. Erase me. Then his hearing returned. Acastian. He sat up. Malrek gripped his shoulder. Can you see? Yes. How many fingers? Acastian pushed his hand away. I am not concussed. Solon laughed. The sound was wrong. All three looked toward him. The librarian raised his head. Tears mixed with blood on his face. I saw him. Ardan froze. Who? Solon looked at Acastian. Your father. No one spoke. Acastian stood. My Primarch was Rogal Dorn. No! The word came with absolute certainty. Acastian stepped toward Solon. The librarian did not retreat. He had no name. What? I could not see it. Then you saw nothing. I saw enough. Solon's voice trembled. I saw an erased throne. Ardan closed his hand around the black key. 30 minutes later, the Thunderhawk Lion's wrath descended through the atmosphere. Kharon Secundus rose beneath them like a corpse. There were no lights, no moving vehicles, no atmospheric traffic. Entire cities lay dark beneath clouds of industrial ash, millions of habitation blocks. Nothing moved between them. Acastian sat secured inside the troop bay. 29 space marines waited around him. Black armor, bronze trim, lion skull heraldry. His brothers. He looked at them differently now. Did their faces carry traces of someone history had removed? Veteran Sergeant Helion checked his bolter. Captain. Acastian looked over. You have been staring at us for 6 minutes. Several warriors turned. Have I? Helion's scarred face twisted slightly. Either you are contemplating an inspiring speech or deciding which of us to execute. Would you prefer the speech? No. A few brothers laughed. The sound helped. For a moment, they were simply warriors deploying to battle. Acastian checked his weapon. His power sword, Oath of Midnight, rested against his knee. The black blade had belonged to 11 captains before him. He suddenly wondered where it had truly come from. Malrek sat across from him, Solon beside the rear ramp. The librarian had recovered physically. Psychically, Acastian was less certain. Ardan remained aboard the Unbroken Oath. The black key rested inside a stasis casket attached to Acastian's armor. He could feel it. Not physically. Something deeper. Like an old scar remembering the blade that made it. 2 minutes, announced the pilot. The Thunderhawk shook. Wind howled beyond the hull. Acastian opened the squad channel. Brothers, we descend into uncertainty. The world below has lost millions of souls. We do not know the enemy. We do not know the nature of the signal. Trust your armor. Trust your weapon. Trust the warrior beside you. He paused. He nearly said, trust your blood. The words would not come. Whatever waits below, we face it together. Helion nodded. That was almost inspiring. Your disappointment is noted. The ramp opened. Dust filled the compartment. The Sable Lions descended into the storm. The northern mining complex was enormous. Excavators the size of cathedrals stood frozen in pits kilometers wide. Cargo haulers remained abandoned on access roads. Hab blocks had been left open. No bodies, no signs of violence. Acastian entered the nearest structure with 5 brothers. Meals remained on tables. Tools lay on workbenches. A child's wooden toy sat beneath a bunk. Malrek scanned the interior. Organic residue. Blood? No. He knelt beside a doorway. His gauntlet scraped gray material from the floor. Skin cells, hair, normal human trace evidence. Then where are the humans? Malrek looked toward the floor. I believe they went below. They found the first footprints several minutes later. Thousands of them. Dust preserved the tracks. Men, women, children, all moving north. No signs of panic, no running, no struggle. An entire city had walked toward the polar excavation. Solon stood among the footprints. They were called. Acastian looked at him. By what? The librarian turned toward the distant storm. Something that remembers us. They followed. At the center of the complex, the mining crews had excavated an impossible structure. Black stone formed a circular wall rising from the ice, not constructed, revealed. Its surface was completely smooth except for the divided circle emblem. A massive doorway stood open. Beyond it, stairs descended into darkness. Helion examined the stone. No tool marks. Techmarine Damos connected a scanner. Material composition unknown. Xenos. No, that does not make it human. Damos paused. No. Acastian stepped toward the doorway. His vision blurred. Another memory. He was enormous again. Bronze armor. The Emperor walking ahead of him down those same stairs. Not similar stairs, the same. The walls were newly cut then. Workers in simple gray uniforms moved aside as they passed. No Aquila, no skulls, no purity seals. Imperial architecture before the Imperium learned to worship death. The Emperor spoke without turning. "There will come a time when you hate me," the Primarch answered through Acastian's mouth. "I already do." The Emperor almost smiled. "No, not yet." The memory ended. Acastian returned to himself with his hand resting on the doorframe. Malrek stood nearby. "You saw something?" "Yes." "What?" "I have been here." Helion looked over. "That would be difficult, Captain. I was not speaking of myself." No one joked after that. They descended. 3 kilometers, then 5, then 9. The stairs should have become impossibly hot from geothermal depth. They did not. Temperature remained constant. The stone absorbed auspex signals. Communications with the surface weakened and failed. At 12 kilometers, they found the first human. He sat against the wall. Alive. A miner, middle-aged, eyes open. Acastian approached. The man's gaze tracked him. "Can you hear me?" "Yes." His voice was calm. "Where are the others?" "Below." "Why?" "He called us." "Who?" The miner smiled. "The son who was forgotten." Acastian felt 30 bolters shift. Solon crouched in front of the man. "What did you hear?" "Not words." The miner touched his chest. "Here." "Why did you obey?" "Because he was sad." Malrek scanned him. "No infection, no obvious neural damage." Acastian knelt. "How long have you been here?" "I don't know." "Why did you stop?" "My heart." Malrek examined the scanner. "Cardiac failure developing." The miner looked at Acastian's shoulder plate. His smile faded. "That isn't your symbol." Acastian froze. "What?" The miner pointed toward the lion skull. "That isn't what you wore before." "Before?" Acastian slowly stood. "Explain." But the miner's eyes rolled upward. Malrek caught him. His heart stopped. The apothecary attempted resuscitation. It failed. Solon whispered. "He never saw us before today." Acastian looked down the staircase. Something below had. They continued. More humans appeared. Some dead from exhaustion. Others sitting quietly against walls. None showed fear. Each said similar things. "He called. He remembers. He is waiting." Some touched the Sable Lions' armor as the Space Marines passed. One old woman began crying when she saw Acastian. "Little one," she whispered. He stopped. The woman smiled. "You came back." Acastian had faced greater demons without hesitation. Those 4 words frightened him. At 15 kilometers, the stairs ended. The chamber beyond was larger than an imperial cathedral. Millions of civilians filled it. They stood silently. 40 million people. Acastian had seen armies smaller than the population gathered below. They formed vast concentric circles around a central gate. No one spoke. No one moved. As the Space Marines entered, the crowd turned. 40 million faces looked toward them. Helion muttered, "I dislike this." For once, Acastian agreed completely. The civilians parted. A pathway opened toward the gate. The Sable Lions advanced. No one touched them. Children watched with enormous eyes. Workers lowered their heads. Old men wept. The gate stood 50 meters high. The divided circle emblem covered its surface. At its center was a keyhole. Acastian felt the black key inside the stasis casket. Solon stopped beside him. "You know what happens now." "No." "Yes. You are a librarian, not a prophet." "Today I may be both." Acastian ignored him. He opened a Vox channel to the squad. "Defensive formation." The Space Marines spread through the crowd. Acastian removed the casket from his armor. The civilians collectively inhaled. 40 million breaths. One sound. Helion raised his bolter. "Captain, I hear it." Acastian opened the casket. The key rested inside. The moment he touched it, the gate awakened. Lines of bronze light spread across the black stone. The entire chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The civilians dropped to their knees. All 40 million. A voice spoke, not through air, inside Acastian's skull. "My sons." Every Sable Lion reacted. Weapons lowered, some staggered. Helion whispered, "What in the throne's name?" Acastian looked at him. "You heard it. All of us did." The voice came again. "My sons." Solon fell to one knee. Not in worship, under pressure. The psychic force was immense. Acastian stepped toward the gate. Malrek grabbed his arm. "Do not." "You heard it. That is why I said do not. It knows us. So do demons." Acastian looked at the key. "It could have killed us already." "That does not make it benevolent." "No." Acastian inserted the key. The gate opened. Darkness waited beyond. Then lights activated one after another. A corridor stretched into the distance. The walls were covered with statues, Space Marines, but not Sable Lions. Their armor was ancient. Thunder Warriors might have recognized parts of its construction. Early legionary plate. Heavy, brutal, less refined than later marks. Every statue wore the same emblem. A divided circle, 2 downward blades. At the end of the corridor stood a giant. Not a statue, a sarcophagus, 30 meters tall, bronze, black, covered in seals. Acastian stepped through the gate. The entire world seemed to disappear behind him. The memory struck, thousands at once. He remembered war beneath 2 suns. He remembered compliance actions whose names had been burned from Imperial record. He remembered brothers in gray armor laughing around a fire. He remembered Primarchs, Guilliman debating logistics, Russ drinking from a horn and pretending not to notice that the wine had been watered, Horus smiling before ambition poisoned him, Sanguinius standing beneath rain, wings folded around his shoulders. Dorn. Acastian remembered Dorn looking at him, not as a father, as a brother. He fell to his knees. Someone shouted his name. The corridor vanished. A palace appeared. The Emperor stood before the bronze-armored Primarch. Acastian was inside him. He could feel his heartbeat, his anger, his love, his fear. "My sons did what you asked." The Emperor's expression was unreadable. "They did. Then spare them." "I cannot." "You mean you will not? There are threats you do not understand." "I understand enough." "No." The Emperor stepped closer. "You understand war. You understand sacrifice. You understand loyalty better than almost any of your brothers. Then trust me. I did. The words wounded the Primarch more than any weapon. The Emperor continued, and because I trusted you, you found something you should never have found. Acastian felt the memory shift. A planet. Violet sky. Boiling oceans. Beneath its crust, a machine. Not human, not Necron, not anything Acastian recognized. A vast network of crystalline organs. A weapon built to interact with thought itself. It did not destroy bodies. It erased patterns from collective memory. Civilizations could vanish while their cities remained. Names could become impossible to remember. History could be wounded. The Primarch had found it during the Great Crusade, and he had used it, once, to save an expeditionary fleet surrounded by a Xenos empire. The machine erased the enemy's knowledge of humanity. 1,000 worlds forgot that mankind existed. The fleet escaped, then something went wrong. The effects spread. Imperial crews began forgetting orders. Navigators forgot routes. Astropaths forgot languages. Entire planets lost generations of memory. The Primarch destroyed the machine, but not before its influence entered him. It attached itself to his psychic presence. Where he walked, memory became unstable. Names vanished, faces blurred, records contradicted themselves. His legion began suffering the same effect through their gene seed. The Emperor had not erased them as punishment. He had erased them because they had become contagious. Acastian felt the Primarch's horror as he understood. You knew. Yes. How long? Since you returned from the violet world. And my sons. Some are unaffected. Some. The younger gene stock shows resistance. Then save them. I intend to. The Primarch stared at his father. What will happen to me? The Emperor was silent. That was answer enough. The Primarch laughed once. There was no humor in it. I wondered which of us would be the first failure. You are not a failure. History will disagree. History will not know. Acastian felt tears on a Primarch's face, not fear of death, grief at being forgotten. Will my brothers know? For a time, and then? They will surrender the memory, willingly. Some. Dorn? The Emperor's expression changed almost imperceptibly. He will resist. The Primarch smiled. Yes, he always does. The memory shifted. Dorn stood in the same chamber. His fists were clenched. You ask too much, the Emperor answered. I ask what is necessary. He is our brother. He is becoming a weapon. He did not choose this. Neither did humanity. Dorn looked toward the bronze-armored Primarch. For the first time, Acastian saw his face clearly. Then reality seemed to recoil. The features blurred. Even inside memory, the contamination remained. But Acastian felt the bond between them. Dorn stepped forward. The two Primarchs clasped forearms. No words, no grand declaration, only grief. The memory changed again. Thousands of legionaries marched into underground vaults, not prisoners, volunteers. Their gene seed had tested clean enough to preserve. Their heraldry was removed, their names changed, their history rewritten. Some were distributed into other legions. Many went to Dorn, because Dorn had insisted. If memory itself was the danger, then the safest place for the survivors was inside a legion defined by discipline and unbreakable identity. The Emperor had agreed. The forgotten Primarch watched his sons remove their old colors. You will remember for them, he told Dorn. Dorn answered, until I am ordered not to. And after, Dorn looked at him. I will remember that I have forgotten something. The vision broke. Acastian screamed. He found himself on the corridor floor. His brothers surrounded him. Malrek injected something into his neck. Acastian knocked the hand away. No. Your neural activity is reaching lethal thresholds. I saw him. Solon crouched nearby. So did I. You saw everything? Enough. Acastian rose unsteadily. Helion stared at the statues. We are not sons of Dorn. Acastian looked at him. We are. Helion's brow furrowed. You just said, not by blood. Acastian touched the lion skull on his pauldron. By inheritance. Malrek understood first. Our gene seed. Survivors. Acastian looked toward the sarcophagus. Our chapter was not created. The words felt enormous. It was restored. The corridor lights intensified. The psychic voice returned. At last. The sarcophagus opened. Bolters rose. A hiss of ancient atmosphere escaped. Something moved inside. Chains fell. A figure stepped forward. 3 meters tall. Armored. Not a Primarch. A space marine. Ancient beyond reason. His plate was crude. Enormous. Marked by the divided circle emblem. His skin was pale. Black cables ran from his spine into the sarcophagus. His eyes opened. Gold. Every Sable Lion froze. The ancient warrior looked at them. Then he smiled. You became black. Acastian raised his sword. Identify yourself. The ancient warrior laughed softly. Still formal. Your name. His expression changed. Sadness entered it. I had one. Acastian waited. The warrior touched his own chest. I cannot remember it. Solon whispered. The effect. The ancient Astartes nodded. Our punishment. Acastian lowered his sword slightly. How long have you been here? Long enough that the stars are wrong. 10,000 years. The ancient warrior closed his eyes. So father failed. Acastian's grip tightened. Which father? The ancient marine looked toward the immense sarcophagus behind him. Not yours. The floor shook. Something deeper awakened. Acastian felt it in his bones. The sarcophagus was not the final chamber. It was a door. The ancient warrior stepped aside. Behind him, another gate opened. What lay beyond was vast. Rows, thousands of stasis coffins. Space marines, not skeletons, not corpses, warriors, 10,000. A legion, asleep beneath the world. Helion whispered a curse. Malrek stepped forward, scanning frantically. Life signs. Acastian looked at the ancient marine. Who are they? The answer was obvious. He needed to hear it. The last sons. Acastian looked at the endless vault. You said survivors were distributed. Some. And these. Those too damaged to release. Damaged. The ancient warrior pointed toward his head. The memory plague. Solon approached a stasis coffin. Inside lay a space marine whose face was locked in dreamless sleep. You kept them here. We kept ourselves here. Why? Because he ordered us to. The ancient warrior glanced upward as though he could see Terra through kilometers of stone and thousands of light years. The Emperor promised he would return when he found a cure. No one spoke. At last, the ancient marine looked at Acastian. He did not return. Acastian's voice was quiet. He cannot. The warrior studied him. Cannot. Acastian realized this being had entered stasis before the heresy. Before Horus, before the siege, before the Golden Throne. He did not know. Much has happened. The ancient marine's eyes hardened. Tell me. Acastian did, not everything. No one could tell 10,000 years of suffering. He spoke of Horus, the betrayal, Istvan, the siege of Terra, Sanguinius dead, the emperor enthroned, the scouring, the rise of the ecclesiarchy, the Imperium stagnating beneath endless war. The ancient marine listened without interruption. When Acastian finished, he turned away. For several minutes he said nothing. Then he whispered, "We slept while the galaxy died." "No!" Acastian stepped closer. "You obeyed." The warrior laughed bitterly. "A convenient distinction." Malrek continued scanning the vault. "What caused the civilians to come here?" The ancient marine looked toward the ceiling. "Not us." Everyone became still. Acastian's sword rose again. "Explain." "The vault began waking 32 days ago. What woke it? I do not know. You were inside it. I was the first awakened. Then who sent the signal? I did. The ancient chapter cipher. We were given it before interment." Acastian looked around. "And the civilians?" The ancient marine's expression darkened. "Their arrival began before I woke." Solon closed his eyes. The psychic air changed. Acastian felt pressure building. The librarian opened his eyes. "Something else is here." The ancient marine nodded. "Yes. Where? Below us." Acastian felt memory stir. The violet world, the machine, the weapon that erased memory. His blood went cold. It was destroyed. The ancient warrior looked sharply at him. "What?" "The weapon." For the first time, fear appeared on the ancient marine's face. "You remember." "I remember through him. You should not." "I know." The warrior stepped closer. "How much?" "Enough to know what happened to your legion." The ancient marine stared at him for several seconds. Then he drew a sword. Every Sable Lion aimed at him. He ignored them. "Kill me!" Acastian did not move. "What?" "If you carry his complete memories, the infection has returned." Malrek stepped between them. "His gene seed is stable. You do not understand. I understand genetics. You understand 10,000 years of ignorance." The ancient marine pointed his sword at Acastian. "We were not buried because we remembered the machine." He touched the side of his head. "We were buried because the machine remembered through us." A sound passed through the vault. A whisper. Millions of voices. The civilians outside began chanting. Not words, a name, the missing name. Acastian heard it. For one impossible instant, he knew his Primarch's name. Then it vanished. Every stasis coffin activated. Warning lights turned red. Malrek spun toward his scanner. Neural activity increasing. Acastian looked over the endless rows. "Shut them down." "I am trying." The ancient marine turned toward the lower gate. "It found us." Solon raised his force staff. "What?" The answer came from every surface, from speakers dead for 10,000 years, from the stasis coffins, from the mouths of 40 million humans beyond the gate, from Acastian's own memories. "I remember you." The ancient marine whispered, "Run!" The first stasis coffin opened. A legionary fell out. He struck the floor on hands and knees. Acastian moved toward him. The ancient warrior shouted, "Do not touch him." Too late. The awakened marine raised his head. His eyes were empty, not black, not possessed, empty. He looked at Acastian. "Who are you?" "Astartes. What is that?" The question silenced the chamber. The marine looked at his own hands. "What am I?" Malrek scanned him. "Severe neural disruption." Another coffin opened, then another. 10, 50, hundreds. Ancient space marines staggered into the vault. Some screamed, some wept, some attacked shadows. One tore at his armor, shouting that he could not remember his face. The ancient warrior raised his sword. "It is beginning again." Acastian opened the vox. "All squads, prepare for containment." Hellion looked at him. "These are our brothers." "Yes." "What are the rules of engagement?" Acastian watched an ancient legionary seize another by the throat. The second warrior whispered something. The first immediately released him. Then both stared at each other. Neither could remember why they were fighting. Non-lethal where possible. Against 10,000 space marines. I said where possible. The vault erupted. Awakened legionaries moved in every direction. The memory plague spread without visible transmission. Brother Orson suddenly stopped. Acastian noticed, because Orson had been covering the eastern corridor. Now his bolter hung loosely. "Orson!" No response. "Brother!" Orson turned. Confusion filled his face. "Captain?" "Yes. Why are we here?" Acastian stepped toward him. "Mission. Recall failure. Hold position." Orson looked at the lion skull on Acastian's armor. "What chapter are you?" Acastian's blood chilled. "The Sable Lions." Orson repeated the words slowly. "I don't know that name." Malrek grabbed him. "Contamination." "How?" "I don't know," Solon shouted from across the vault. "Psychic propagation." A wave of pressure struck them. Acastian saw Terra, not as memory, as it existed now. Golden throne, millions of cables, the Emperor's corpse. Then the image changed. He saw the Emperor standing, young, alive, then older, then faceless, then absent. The concept of the Emperor began to loosen inside Acastian's mind. He knew something should occupy the center of his loyalty. Someone, a throne, a father, a god. What was his name? Acastian slammed his fist into his own helmet. Pain restored focus. "Emperor." The word returned. "Emperor." He said it again. Around him, Sable Lions repeated it. "Emperor. Emperor. Emperor." A battle chant, an anchor. Solon drove his force staff into the floor. Blue fire exploded outward. "Remember!" The psychic command hit like thunder. Every Sable Lion staggered. Memory returned. For a moment, the ancient legionaries screamed. Some remembered too much. Acastian saw one warrior collapse as 10,000 years of deferred psychic decay flooded into him. The ancient guardian seized Acastian. "We have to reach the core." "Where?" "Below." "You said the machine was destroyed." "The original was." "Then what is down there?" "A fragment." Acastian remembered the violet world. The Primarch standing amid ruins, holding something. A crystal the size of a human skull. The Emperor shouting. No, not shouting. Forbidding. "Destroy it." The Primarch answered. "If we destroy everything we fear, we learn nothing." Acastian understood. "He brought a piece back." The Guardian nodded. "To study a cure." "Idiot. He was a Primarch." "That does not contradict me." For the first time, the ancient warrior laughed. "Perhaps you truly are his son." They fought downward. The vault had become war. Ancient legionaries clashed with one another as identity vanished. Some believed themselves upon long-dead battlefields. Some called Acastian by names he had never heard. One charged him screaming, "Traitor of the 9th Gate." Acastian broke the warrior's knee with a kick, then struck him unconscious with the pommel of his sword. Another ancient marine fired. The bolt struck Brother Joran in the chest. Joran returned fire. Acastian knocked his weapon aside. Non-lethal! He shot me! You have been shot before. Yes. Then stop complaining. They reached the lower gate with 17 Sable Lions still functional. Malrek dragged Orson. The afflicted Marine repeated his own name constantly. Orson, Orson, Orson. Helion walked beside him. You owe me 9 bottles of Amasec. Orson looked at him. I do. No. But if you forget yourself entirely, I intend to profit. Orson laughed weakly. Helion. Yes, I remember you. Unfortunate. The lower gate opened. Beyond waited the machine. Acastian recognized it immediately. Not from design, from hatred. The chamber was filled with crystalline roots. They grew from a central fragment of violet material, no larger than a coffin. 10,000 years of mechanical systems surrounded it. Cables, null field generators, psi dampers. Most had failed. The fragment pulsed. Each pulse changed something. Acastian looked at his sword. For a second he could not remember where he had acquired it. Another pulse. Helion cursed. What color was our armor? Black. Are you sure? Yes. Another pulse. Acastian remembered red. No. Gray. Bronze. His own childhood disappeared. He remembered standing beneath rain on his recruitment world. Then no world, no rain. He stopped walking. Malrek struck him. Acastian looked over. Why? You stopped. His name vanished. He knew he had one. A word, a sound, gone. The ancient guardian grabbed him. Acastian. Memory returned. Acastian. The guardian nodded. Keep saying it. They advanced. Acastian. Helion. Malrek. Solon. The surviving Marines called their names. Identity as litany. The fragment pulsed. 2 warriors forgot to speak. They stopped. Their brothers dragged them. Solon reached the central platform. His face was white. I can contain it. The ancient guardian shook his head. No psyker can. I did not say survive. Acastian looked at him. What do you intend? Create a psychic boundary long enough for someone to destroy the fragment. Malrek studied the crystalline object. Can it be destroyed? The guardian answered. Yes. How? Primarch level force. Helion looked around. Convenient. Acastian remembered the dream. The enormous sword. Golden armor. The violet world. The Primarch destroying the machine. Not with physical strength alone. He had used himself, his psychic imprint. The machine had bonded with his mind. It could be broken only by the same pattern. Acastian looked toward the fragment. It wants me. Malrek understood. No. It is why the visions began. You do not know that. It woke 32 days ago. The visions started 71 days ago. Acastian paused. That did not fit. The ancient guardian looked at him. When did you enter this system? 73 days ago. The answer came from Malrek. Acastian stared. The unbroken oath had emerged from the warp at the edge of the subsector before receiving the distress signal. The visions began 2 days later. It sensed us. Solon nodded. It sensed his gene line. Acastian looked at the fragment. No, understanding expanded, not his gene line. He looked back toward the thousands of ancient Marines. The Legion. Malrek followed his reasoning. It needed genetically compatible carriers. To rebuild the pattern, the fragment pulsed. Acastian saw the forgotten Primarch. Not a memory now. A face trying to form. The machine had lost him too. The weapon that erased memory could no longer remember the man who had bound it. It had called his sons to reconstruct him, piece by piece, through gene seed, through inherited resonance, through Acastian's dreams. Solon whispered, "It is building him inside you." The voice came from the crystal, not him. Memory. The chamber changed. Acastian saw a figure standing where none had been. Bronze armor, lion skull, a Primarch, faceless. He looked at Acastian. Son. Acastian's knees weakened. Every cell in his body responded. Gene seed recognized progenitor. Not concept, not belief, biology. His secondary heart accelerated. His muscles locked. Tears reached his eyes. He had never known how deeply an Astartes could yearn for the presence of his Primarch, until that instant. The figure extended one hand. "Come home." Acastian stepped forward. Malrek grabbed him. Acastian struck the Apothecary hard enough to send him across the chamber. Helion moved between them. "Captain!" Acastian drew his sword. Helion raised his bolter. Neither fired. The Primarch stood behind Helion. He looked wounded. "My sons were taken from me." Acastian's sword lowered. I was erased. The memories returned. The Emperor condemning him. Dorn embracing him. His legion stripped of colors. 10,000 years of silence. Grief flooded Acastian. "Father!" The word escaped before he could stop it. The faceless Primarch smiled. "Yes," Solon screamed. "That is not him!" Psychic lightning struck Acastian. He fell. The illusion shattered. For a moment he saw the truth. The bronze figure was hollow. A shape assembled from stolen memory. No soul, no Primarch, an imitation. The machine did not want to resurrect its master. It wanted a body capable of carrying its function beyond the vault. A Primarch's genetic shadow was the perfect vessel. Acastian rose. His sword ignited. Blue energy crawled along the blade. "You are not my father." The construct tilted its head. Acastian advanced. "My father died before history learned his name." The machine pulsed. Memories attacked. The violet world. The Primarch's grief. The Emperor's cruelty. Dorn's silence. Acastian kept walking. "You are his wound." The construct stepped back. "You are the thing that destroyed him." The chamber shook. The false Primarch's face began forming. Acastian refused to look. "You do not get to wear him," he charged. The construct struck. Invisible force launched Acastian through the air. He hit the floor hard enough to crack ceramite. Helion opened fire. Bolt rounds passed through the figure and detonated against machinery. The machine responded. Helion froze. His bolter fell. He looked down at his hands. "Who?" Acastian climbed to his feet. "Helion!" The sergeant stared at him. "Who are you?" Acastian's chest tightened. "We have fought together for a century." "I don't remember." "You hate speeches." Helion's face remained blank. "You cheat at regicide." "Nothing. You have owed me a combat knife since Gethsemar." Helion blinked. Acastian stepped closer. "You took it from my belt, because yours broke in an orc's skull." Something moved behind Helion's eyes. "You refused to return it." A pause. "You said battlefield salvage." Helion whispered, "Valid doctrine." Acastian smiled. "Welcome back." Helion picked up his bolter. The fragment pulsed harder. Malrek returned. Blood ran from his mouth. "You hit like a dreadnought." "I apologize." "You will." The ancient guardian reached the central machinery. There, a narrow gap existed between psychic containment coils. The crystal was visible. Acastian looked at Solon. "Can you hold it? For perhaps 10 seconds." "Enough." "No." The librarian's eyes burned. You do not understand. Once I bind it, I will not be able to release myself. Acastian understood perfectly. You will die. Yes, Helion moved forward. There must be another way. Solon smiled. There is always another way in stories. He gripped his force staff. We live in the Imperium. The librarian slammed the staff down. Reality screamed. A dome of blue light expanded. The false Primarch convulsed. The machine's psychic pulse stopped. Every marine in the chamber gasped as memory stabilized. Go! Solon shouted. Acastian charged. 10 seconds. The ancient guardian ran beside him. 9. Crystal structures erupted from the floor. Helion fired, shattering them. 8. Acastian reached the containment ring. 7. A psychic image of the Emperor appeared. Stop. Acastian ignored it. 6. Dorn appeared next. Brother. Acastian kept moving. 5. The forgotten Primarch stood before him, his face almost visible. Son. Acastian raised his sword. 4. He hesitated. The construct smiled. 3. The ancient guardian shoved him aside. Do not look! The guardian struck the crystal with his blade. The weapon shattered. The feedback tore his arm away. 2. Acastian screamed and brought Oath of Midnight down. The sword struck the fragment. It did not break. 1. Solon's psychic shield collapsed. The machine entered Acastian, not metaphorically, not as influence, as memory. 10,000 years slammed into his mind. He became the forgotten Primarch. He remembered his birth. No, he remembered being found. A world of mountains. People who carved histories into stone because written records were considered too fragile. A child, larger than men. A king before adolescence. The Emperor descending in golden light. He remembered refusing to kneel. The Emperor laughing. He remembered eventually kneeling anyway. He remembered receiving a legion whose heraldry showed the skull of the extinct Terran cave lion. He remembered the name of the legion. It vanished. He remembered his own name. It vanished. He remembered campaigns, thousands, worlds brought into compliance, friends made, brothers lost. He remembered Horus before corruption. Magnus arguing that knowledge should never be destroyed. Perturabo, silently improving a fortification Dorn had designed and then refusing to admit he had touched it. Sanguinius asking whether fate could be changed. Kersey answering from the darkness that fate was the only honest thing in existence. He remembered the violet world, the machine, the mistake. He remembered worlds forgetting, children forgetting parents, soldiers forgetting loyalties, navigators forgetting stars. He remembered begging the Emperor for time. He remembered being denied. He remembered his sons, 10,000 kneeling before him. He remembered telling them they would survive. He remembered lying. He remembered the final chamber. The Emperor, Dorn, Malcador. The Sigillite held a staff and looked older than death. The Emperor said, "There is one way." The Primarch asked, "Will it hurt?" "Yes." "Good." The Emperor placed a hand upon his son's head. Memory began disappearing. The Primarch laughed as his own name vanished. Then his home world, then his victories, then the faces of his sons. His final thought was not anger. It was relief. If he could no longer remember them, perhaps the thing inside him could not either. Acastian returned to the chamber. His sword remained embedded in the crystal. The machine was inside him now. Solon lay dead. The false Primarch was gone. Everyone stared at Acastian. Malrek whispered his name. "Acastian!" Acastian looked at him. He remembered everything. That was the horror. He remembered the Primarch's name. He could say it. For the first time in 10,000 years, a human mind contained the complete identity of the erased son of the Emperor. He opened his mouth. The ancient guardian shouted, "Do not!" Acastian stopped. The name burned behind his teeth. The machine listened, waiting. He understood. Speaking the name would anchor the pattern. Remembering it completely would rebuild the connection. He had become the final lock. Acastian closed his eyes. "How do I kill it?" The guardian stared at him. "You cannot. There is always a way. Your librarian said otherwise." Acastian looked at Solin's body, then at the crystal, then at his brothers. "Malrek." The apothecary approached. "What? The Omophageia?" Malrek frowned. "What about it?" "It extracts memory through consumed neural tissue." "Yes. Can the process work in reverse?" "No." You answered quickly, because the answer is no. "Can memory be chemically damaged?" Malrek stared. Then understanding came. "You want me to induce neural destruction." "Selective. There is nothing selective about destroying a space marine's memory centers." Acastian looked at the crystal. "I do not need to remember myself." Malrek stepped closer. "No, I need to forget him." "No, that is an order. I refuse." Acastian almost smiled. "Apothecaries are not permitted to refuse captains. Apothecaries are permitted to prevent captains from committing medically elaborate suicide." The ancient guardian interrupted. "He is right." Malrek looked toward him. The warrior continued. "The Primarch tried the same." Acastian froze. "What?" "The memory plague survived partial destruction. That is why the Emperor erased everything." "How?" "Not simply from minds." The guardian pointed toward the chamber. "Records, statues, legion markings, gene registries, cultural references, every anchor." Acastian understood the scale. "To kill this thing, you must remove every complete pattern." Malrek looked toward the vault above. 10,000 ancient legionaries. "Yes, the Sable Lions." The guardian nodded. "Yes." Acastian felt something break inside him. "Our entire chapter. If your gene seed carries sufficient imprint." Malrek looked at his scanner. "It may." Helion raised his weapon. "Then we destroy the fragment and leave." The guardian shook his head. "It is already beyond the fragment." His eyes moved to Acastian. "It has a carrier." Helion's bolter slowly turned toward his captain. Everyone noticed. Acastian did not blame him. "Do it!" Helion's face hardened. "No! You know what is at stake." "I know you. For the moment, that is enough." Acastian stepped closer to the bolter. "Sergeant, do not order me. That is exactly what I am going to do." Helion's finger rested near the trigger. Acastian looked into his eyes. "If I lose myself, kill me." Helion said nothing. "Brother." The word mattered. Finally, Helion nodded. "If you lose yourself." Acastian turned toward the ancient guardian. "What is your plan?" The warrior looked toward the machinery. "The vault has a failsafe." "Of course it does. The Emperor designed it. That makes me less comfortable." For the first time, the ancient warrior smiled fully. "There is a thermal lance beneath the vault. How powerful! It can collapse the planetary mantle beneath this region." Malrek looked upward. "The civilians, 40 million. The guardian's smile vanished. "Yes." Acastian stared at him. "You brought them here." "No." "The machine did." "Yes." "Why?" "Memory." Solin's corpse lay nearby. Acastian understood before anyone explained. Human minds were anchors too. 40 million civilians had been exposed. They had heard the forgotten name. Even if they could no longer consciously recall it, fragments remained. The machine had built redundancy, a living archive. Helion cursed. "We cannot kill 40 million Imperial citizens." The ancient guardian looked at him. "You have killed more for less." Helion went silent. That was the cruelty of the Imperium. The statement was probably true. Acastian remembered cities burned to prevent demonic spread, worlds virus-bombed to deny biomass to tyrannids, populations purged because rebellion had progressed beyond recovery. 40 million lives were horrifying. Against the survival of untold trillions, the arithmetic was simple. That did not make it right. Acastian walked back toward the gate. "Where are you going?" "To speak to them." The civilians remained kneeling. Millions looked toward him as he emerged. Acastian climbed onto the raised threshold. He had addressed armies. Never a population waiting to die. He opened his external vox. "People of Kharon Secundus." His voice traveled through the cavern. "You were brought here by a force you did not understand." Faces watched. "You heard a voice." Some nodded. "You felt sorrow." More nods. "You believed someone forgotten was calling to you." An old miner shouted. "He was!" The crowd murmured. Acastian looked over them. "No," the word echoed. "The man you heard died 10,000 years ago." Murmurs became louder. "What called you was the weapon that destroyed him." Silence returned slowly. Acastian removed his helmet. He wanted them to see a face, not a skull mask, not ceramite, a man, however altered. "I will not lie to you. You have been exposed to something dangerous." A woman shouted. "Are we sick?" Acastian looked at her. "I do not know." It was the first mercy he could offer. Truth. A child near the front asked, "Can we go home?" Acastian's throat tightened. He could have lied. Space Marines were not built for comforting children. He looked toward the ancient guardian. The warrior's expression was stone. Acastian looked back at the child. "What is your name?" "Leo." "Leo, I am going to try." The machine stirred inside Acastian. The forgotten name pressed against his thoughts. He clenched his jaw. Then an idea came. Not from the Primarch, from Dorn. A memory. The two brothers standing in a fortress during the Great Crusade. The forgotten Primarch mocked Dorn. "You solve every problem by building a wall." Dorn answered, "Only the ones that require walls." "What about a problem inside the wall? Then build another." Acastian stood completely still. Another wall. The Emperor had erased the Primarch because complete destruction of the machine's pattern required erasing every anchor. But perhaps total forgetting was not necessary. Only separation. Containment. Acastian looked at Malrek. "Can gene seed be altered?" The apothecary frowned. "Define altered. Remove specific inherited markers, with advanced facilities. Do we have them aboard the Oath? Not for this." The ancient guardian spoke. "We do here." Everyone looked at him. "This vault was built to search for a cure. Did it find one? No. But it can manipulate gene seed? Yes." Acastian looked toward the millions of civilians. The machine called them because it needed minds. Solon was dead, but Acastian remembered his words. Psychic propagation. What if the memories are not destroyed? Malrek stared at him. Then the threat remains. What if they are divided? The ancient guardian's eyes narrowed. "Explain." No single mind can retain the complete pattern. Helion understood. You want to break the memory apart. Across millions. Malrek shook his head. Impossible. The machine already connected them. To reconstruct memory, not divide it. Then reverse the process. With what psyche? Solon is dead. Acastian looked toward the crystal. With the machine. The ancient guardian raised his sword. That is madness. Yes, it will corrupt you. It already has. It could spread beyond this world. Then keep the thermal lance ready. Malrek stepped closer. What exactly are you proposing? Acastian looked at the civilian crowd. 40 million people, each retain a fragment too small to reconstruct the whole. A color, a sound, a sensation, 1 second from a life, nothing complete. Helion said, and us? Our gene seed carries the strongest pattern. It must be stripped, meaning the Sable Lions lose whatever remains of our original Primarch. Silence. The words hurt more than expected. For 10,000 years their lineage had survived under another name. Now survival required surrendering even that final fragment. Malrek looked at him. If it works, yes, and if it does not. The Guardian activates the lance. The ancient marine considered him. You would trust me with that. You obeyed an order for 10,000 years. Acastian met his gaze. I suspect reliability. The Guardian gave a slow nod. They returned to the machine chamber. Malrek and the ancient warrior worked through systems that had not been touched since before the heresy. Some interfaces responded to voice. Others required genetic authentication. Acastian's blood opened sealed protocols. That fact bothered everyone. Hours passed. The ancient legionaries were contained as best they could. Some regained temporary stability once the fragment's active pulse weakened. Others never did. The Sable Lions formed defensive circles around the machinery. Acastian sat beside Solon's body. Helion approached. You should rest. I have had enough dreams. Helion sat beside him. For a while neither spoke. Finally, Helion asked, Do you remember his name? Acastian nodded. Do not tell me. I wasn't going to. Good. Another pause. What was he like? Acastian looked toward the distant vault. How could he summarize a Primarch? A warrior. That narrows it. He hated being praised. More useful. He collected maps. Maps. Of worlds after compliance, not before. Why? He said a conquered world should be remembered as something other than a battlefield. Helion looked surprised. Acastian continued. He argued with the Emperor often. That narrows it even less. Acastian smiled faintly. He liked Dorn. Helion looked toward him. That I did not expect. Neither did anyone, apparently. Did Dorn like him? Yes. Helion considered this. Then perhaps our chapter did not inherit the wrong father. Acastian looked at him. Helion tapped the black armor on his chest. Blood is one thing. He touched the Imperial Aquila. Choice is another. Acastian remembered Dorn promising to remember what had been forgotten. 10,000 years later, Dorn's sons still carried the lost legion without knowing why. Perhaps promises could survive memory. Malrek approached. It is ready. The procedure began with gene seed. 20 Sable Lions entered the ancient medical chamber. Mechanical arms descended. Needles penetrated black carapace. Blood was extracted. Progenoid samples taken. Malrek monitored every stage. The vault's machines analyzed genetic sequences beyond his understanding. A holographic helix appeared. Sections glowed. The ancient guardian pointed. There, Acastian looked. What is it? The resonance structure. Malrek studied the data. Not genetic information in the conventional sense. No. Psychic imprint encoded through protein folding. The guardian nodded. Your age has names for things we only suspected. Malrek almost smiled. Your age built machines we worship because we cannot repair them. Then perhaps neither age should be proud. The stripping process began. Acastian felt nothing at first. Then memories faded. Not his own, the Primarch's. The map collection vanished. A conversation with Sanguinius disappeared. A battle under twin moons dissolved. Acastian gripped the table. No, Malrek looked over. What? Nothing. Another memory vanished. The Primarch laughing. Gone. Dorn clasping his arm. Gone. Acastian wanted to stop the machine. These were the last pieces. Once lost, no archive would preserve them. No statue, no history, no prayer. A man who had commanded a legion would truly cease to exist. The machine continued. Acastian whispered, I am sorry. Malrek heard. To whom? Acastian did not answer. The final inherited memory disappeared. The name remained. Inside Acastian. The complete pattern the machine had forced into him. That would be handled separately. The other Sable Lions underwent the process, one after another. Hellion emerged from the chamber and looked around. I feel different. How? I don't know. Acastian understood. A room had been removed from their souls. They could no longer remember the door. The ancient legionaries were next. Thousands. Some refused, some fought. Many understood immediately. When told the truth, the oldest warriors reacted not with grief, but relief. One ancient marine laughed. You mean we may finally be free of him? Acastian almost struck him, then realized what he meant. Not the Primarch, the machine, the plague, 10,000 years of stolen identity. They entered willingly. Not all survived. Their gene seed was unstable. Some bodies collapsed when psychic structures were removed. Malrek recorded every death. 412. The ancient guardian watched each one. Do you remember their names? Acastian asked. No, his voice broke. That is the worst part. Acastian put a hand on his shoulder. You will remember they existed. The guardian looked at him. After a moment, he nodded. The civilians were connected last. 40 million people filled the chamber network. Ancient psychic amplifiers came online. There was no librarian to control them. Acastian would have to. The machine lived inside him. It recognized him as the central pattern. Malrek secured Acastian to a throne-like interface. I dislike this. So do I mean medically. I assumed. If your cortical activity exceeds the limit, I terminate the connection. No. Acastian. If I begin losing control, kill me. Malrek stared. That solution appears frequently in your plans. It is efficient. It is irritating. Hellion stood nearby with bolter loaded. I have the less medically sophisticated version. Acastian looked at him. Do not miss. Hellion looked offended. The ancient guardian moved to a control station. The thermal lance is armed. How long after activation? 40 seconds. Enough. For what? Regret. The guardian smiled grimly. Acastian placed both hands on the interface. The machine opened. 40 million minds appeared. Not thoughts, lights. Each consciousness a point. The scale was overwhelming. Acastian nearly recoiled. Then the fragment inside him awakened. The name surged forward. The forgotten Primarch formed again. This time his face was clear. Acastian saw him. Truly, he wanted to weep. The Primarch looked tired. Not the machine's imitation. A memory. Perhaps the final, authentic memory. "You are not my son," the Primarch said. Acastian could not tell whether the words were real. "No. Good." Acastian almost laughed. "You gave us your blood. I gave many things I should not have. History forgot you. It forgets everyone eventually. Not like this." The Primarch stepped closer. "Do you want to save me?" Acastian answered honestly. "Yes." "Why?" "Because no one should disappear." The Primarch smiled. "That is exactly why the machine survived." Acastian understood. Memory was not always mercy. Some things had to end. The Primarch looked beyond him toward the millions of waiting minds. "My sons survived. Some. They became something else. Yes. That is survival." Acastian's throat tightened. "Your name will vanish. It vanished once already. Forever this time." The Primarch shrugged. "So be it. You are not afraid. I was afraid 10,000 years ago." He looked at Acastian. "I have had time." The machine attacked. The Primarch's face split. Violet light filled the psychic space. Acastian screamed. The complete memory pattern tried to replicate into every connected mind. He fought, not with strength, with division. He seized one memory, the violet sky. He broke it apart. Color to one mind, heat to another, the sound of boiling oceans to a third, a mountain shape to a fourth. Millions of fragments, meaningless individually. The machine resisted. It tried to reconnect them. Acastian scattered more. The Emperor's face. One person received the color gold, another a single spoken syllable, another the sensation of standing before someone impossibly powerful. No context, no name. Dorn's handshake, pressure, bronze armor, sadness, gone into separate minds. The machine screamed. Acastian felt the sound through his teeth. The ancient guardian shouted something in the physical chamber. He could not hear. More memories, campaigns, brothers, wars, maps, laughter, regret. Each shattered, each distributed. The Primarch became smaller, less complete. Acastian fought harder. The machine tried to preserve the name. The name was the core, the final anchor. Acastian held it. He could not break it. Names were not memories. They were keys. The machine pushed. He saw Solon, dead, Hellion, Malrek, the chapter, the Imperium. If the name escaped, everything failed. Acastian made a decision. He opened his own memories, not the Primarch's, his. The machine hesitated. Acastian gave it his childhood. Reign on the recruitment world, gone. He gave it his first battle, gone. His first kill, gone. His elevation to sergeant, gone. Getsamar, Beleros, brothers, friends, 200 years. The machine consumed them. Malrek shouted, "His neural structure is collapsing!" Helion stepped forward. "Disconnect him!" "No!" Acastian screamed. The name remained. He needed somewhere to bury it. So he buried it beneath himself. Every personal memory became another layer. A lifetime turned into a tomb. The machine followed. It searched. Acastian surrendered more. His chapter, gone his rank, gone. The meaning of the Aquila, gone the Emperor. No, he held that. The machine pushed harder. The Primarch's name burned. Acastian understood what the Emperor had done 10,000 years before. Not simple erasure, sacrifice. To destroy a memory fully, someone had to decide that remembering it mattered less than those who would survive. Acastian released his own name. Acastian Vey disappeared. The machine faltered. There was no host identity left to organize the pattern. The Primarch's name began to break. One syllable, gone. Another, gone. The first sound, the last, gone. The forgotten sun vanished. The machine screamed one final time. Then silence. Acastian opened his eyes. He was strapped to a machine. Men in black armor stood around him. One wore white, another held a bolter. An ancient warrior stood at a control station. Acastian looked at them. He felt no fear, only confusion. The man in white leaned close. "Acastian." Acastian stared. The word meant nothing. The man's face changed. Pain. "Acastian, can you hear me?" "Yes." "Do you know who I am?" "No." The man closed his eyes. The warrior with the bolter turned away. Acastian looked down at his own body. Black armor, bronze trim, a lion skull. "What am I?" No one answered immediately. Then the warrior with the bolter approached. He removed his helmet. His face was scarred. His eyes were wet. "You are my brother." Acastian considered the word. Brother. Something deep inside responded. Not memory. Instinct. "Who am I?" The warrior swallowed. "Acastian Vey." Acastian repeated it. "Acastian Vey." Nothing returned. The apothecary checked instruments. Long-term memory catastrophic. Procedural memory appears intact. Acastian looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you may not remember who you are." The warrior with the bolter placed a combat knife in Acastian's hand. Acastian caught it automatically. He tested the balance, shifted grip, blade forward, then reverse. His body knew. The warrior smiled. "But you remember how to fight." Acastian looked at the blade. "Yes, that will simplify things." The ancient machines shut down. Across the enormous civilian chamber, millions woke as though from sleep. Most remembered, coming underground. None remembered why. Some carried strange fragments. A child named Leo would spend the rest of his life dreaming of a violet sky. A miner would occasionally hear distant laughter without knowing whose. An old woman would paint the image of a bronze giant, although she could never explain where she had seen him. None held enough to reconstruct the whole. The weapon had been reduced to noise. The crystal at the core turned gray. Malrek shattered it with a power maul. No psychic scream followed. The ancient guardian deactivated the thermal lance. For the first time in 10,000 years, he stood without an order from the past. Chapter. Master Arden came to the surface 3 days later. He walked among the awakened ancient legionaries. 9,588 remained. Too many for a chapter. Too few for a legion. The Imperium did not know they existed. Perhaps that was fortunate. Ardan met the guardian beneath the dark sky of Kharon Secundus. "What do we call you?" The ancient warrior considered. "I do not remember my old name." "You will need one!" The warrior looked toward the black-armored Sable Lions. "What did we become?" Ardan answered. "His sons." The guardian looked at the lion skull. "Then I suppose we remain lions." Ardan extended his arm. The ancient warrior clasped it. Acastian watched from a distance. He did not know who Rogal Dorn was, not yet. Malrek had begun teaching him. The Imperium, the Emperor, the Chapter, his wars, his brothers. Information returned easily. Memory did not. Acastian could read his own campaign records and feel as though studying the life of another man. Sometimes Helion told stories. "You once ordered an entire artillery company to fire on your position. Why? There were demons. Did it work? Yes, then it was sensible. That is what you said last time. Other details came strangely. He knew how to strip a bolter blindfolded. He knew 6 battlefield languages. He knew how to command warriors. He knew how to pray. One evening he stood before a temporary shrine. The symbol showed a clenched fist. "Who is that?" he asked. Helion stood beside him. "Rogal Dorn, our Primarch." Helion hesitated, then smiled. "Yes," Acastian noticed. That answer required thought. "Our history is complicated. Was he my genetic father?" Helion looked toward the horizon. "No. Then why call him our Primarch?" "Because 10,000 years ago, when others decided our ancestors had to disappear, he took them in." Acastian considered. "He protected them." "Yes. Then the title seems appropriate." Helion laughed. "I thought you might say that." Acastian looked toward the stars. Somewhere among them was Terra. He knew this intellectually. He did not remember ever caring about it. Yet when Malrek had first explained the Golden Throne, Acastian had felt grief. Perhaps the body remembered things the mind could not. The ancient legionaries were integrated carefully. Most would never wear their original heraldry again. The divided circle symbol was sealed within the deepest archive of the unbroken oath. No record of the forgotten Primarch's identity remained. Even Malrek could not reconstruct it from Acastian's neural scans. The chapter's false histories were not corrected. There was nothing to correct them with. The Sable Lions remained officially Sons of Dorn. Ardan decided that truth sometimes existed in forms other than genetics. The Imperium had enough crises without discovering an erased legion beneath a mining world. Kharon Secundus was quarantined for observation. Its population returned slowly to the surface. Reports described the event as a mass psychic incident caused by unknown Xenos ruins. The Inquisition would eventually ask questions. The Sable Lions would eventually answer some of them. Most archives beneath the world were destroyed. Some secrets deserved graves. Acastian returned to active duty 9 months later. Malrek objected. Acastian ignored him. Apparently, that was normal. His first mission after recovery came aboard the Unbroken Oath. A greenskin fleet had crossed into the Demeo system. 3 Imperial worlds were threatened. Acastian stood in the strategium while officers argued deployment patterns. He listened. Then he moved fleet markers. "Here." Ardan looked at the display. "Why?" "The Orc vessels will attempt to break through the center." Helion raised an eyebrow. "The center is our strongest point." "Yes. Then why would they attack it?" Acastian looked at him. "They are orcs." Several officers laughed. Ardan studied the formation. "Your previous self used the same tactic at Gethsemar." Acastian looked at him. "I did?" "Yes." "Did it work?" "Eventually." "That sounds concerning." "You lost 2 ships." "More concerning." "And destroyed 19. Acastian considered. "Acceptable." Ardan smiled. The battle lasted 18 hours. The greenskin fleet broke exactly where Acastian predicted. The Sable Lions counterattacked. The Unbroken Oath rammed an Orc cruiser while firing both broadsides. Acastian led the boarding action. He fought through smoke-filled corridors with Helion beside him. At one point, an Orc Nob charged from behind a bulkhead. Acastian sidestepped, drove his sword upward beneath its jaw, and severed half its skull. Helion shot another. "You remember that?" "What?" "You used that same strike on Gethsemar." Acastian looked at the dead orc. "No." Helion reloaded. "Good strike. It worked." That is usually your standard. They continued. Hours later, Acastian reached the Orc command deck. The war boss towered above him. They fought beneath burning machinery. The creature broke Acastian's left pauldron. Acastian severed its arm. The war boss laughed. Acastian drove Oath of Midnight through its chest. The sword had been recovered from Kharon Secundus and reforged. Its blade now contained a thin line of violet crystal. Malrek had objected violently. Acastian had been told this too was normal. The war boss died. The greenskin fleet collapsed. Acastian stood beneath the stars, visible through a shattered viewport. For a moment, something flickered. A memory. Not his. A giant standing beneath two suns. A sword raised. Bronze armor. A lion skull. Acastian froze. Then the image disappeared. Helion approached. "You all right?" Acastian looked at him. "Yes. You looked somewhere else. I thought I remembered something." Helion became serious. "What?" Acastian searched his mind. "Nothing." He smiled. "I forgot." Helion watched him for several seconds, then nodded. "Good." They returned to the Thunderhawk. Years passed. The chapter changed. Ancient warriors learned the new Imperium. Many hated it. Some could not accept the ecclesiarchy. One nearly killed a priest after being told the emperor was a god. Arden spent 3 hours explaining political necessity. The ancient marine spent 4 hours complaining. They eventually compromised by never discussing theology. New squads were created, old armor restored. The chapter's strength swelled beyond codex limits. Official reports became creative. 3 ancient companies were listed as fleet auxiliaries. 2,000 legionaries disappeared into crusading forces under invented chapter identities. Others remained in stasis until the Imperium had need. It always did. Acastian advanced. Captain again. Not because anyone restored his title automatically. He refused. "I do not remember earning it." Ardon told him. "Then earn it again." He did. At the Siege of Morvant, Acastian held a breach for 6 hours against traitor Astartes. At Draxos, he destroyed a demon engine by entering its reactor chamber alone. At Heliod, he commanded 3 companies through a void assault that saved an Imperial convoy, carrying 9 million refugees. Brothers began following him, not because of the man he had been, because of the man he became. Malrek once asked whether that troubled him. "No. You lost 2 centuries. I am told they were useful. That is not what I mean." Acastian knew. He looked toward the Apothecarian windows. Stars moved beyond. Every space marine is created by destroying the person he was. Malrek frowned. "That sounds like something a chaplain would say. Do not insult me." Malrek almost smiled. Acastian continued. "A child becomes an aspirant. The aspirant becomes a neophyte. The neophyte becomes Astartes. Each stage leaves something behind. You left more than most. Yes. Do you miss it?" Acastian considered. "How do I miss something I cannot remember?" Malrek looked sad. Acastian placed a hand on his shoulder. "You remember enough for both of us." The apothecary looked away. That was answer enough. Centuries later, Acastian stood again upon Terra. He had never expected to see it. The Sable Lions had been summoned as part of a reinforcement fleet. He walked within the Imperial palace among stone walls that made entire hive cities seem small. Custodians watched from distant balconies. Pilgrims filled plazas by the million. Acastian knew the palace through maps, yet certain corridors felt familiar. At first he ignored it. Then he reached a junction beneath an ancient fortress wall. He stopped. Halion, now wearing the white helm of a veteran lieutenant, turned. "What?" Acastian looked down the left corridor. "That way. Our destination is right." "I know. Then why are you looking left?" Acastian could not explain. He walked. Halion cursed and followed. They descended. Custodians stopped them twice. Acastian gave authorization codes. Somehow they were accepted. At last, they reached an old chamber. Empty, a single wall, nothing more. Acastian stood before it. His hand touched the stone. Something beneath the surface responded. A faint bronze line appeared, a divided circle, 2 downward blades. Halion went perfectly still. That symbol was destroyed. "Yes. Did you remember it?" "No. Then how?" Acastian pressed his palm against the wall. A hidden compartment opened. Inside was a small stone tablet. No name, no image, only words. Acastian read them. "For the son, who chose to be forgotten. No wall stands forever, but some duties do." R.D. Halion whispered, "Dorn." Acastian touched the inscription. The Praetorian had remembered. Not the name, not the face, but the promise. 10,000 years. Empires had changed. Primarchs had fallen. Records had burned. Yet somewhere beneath Terra, Rogal Dorn had left a marker for a brother history would never know. Acastian stood silently. He felt grief for someone he could not remember. That was enough. He removed the lion skull badge from his armor. Not the divided circle emblem. The Sable Lions' modern badge, black, bronze. He placed it inside the compartment. Halion looked at him. "Why?" Acastian closed the stone panel. "So he knows what became of them." "Who?" Acastian looked at the wall. "I don't remember." Halion smiled. Neither did he. They walked back toward the light. Behind them, the hidden chamber sealed. No alarm sounded. No record was created. No archivist witnessed the moment. The forgotten Primarch remained forgotten. His name did not return. His legion did not reclaim its history. The Imperium would never build statues in his honor. No pilgrim would whisper prayers before his image. No battle barge would carry his name. No chapter would publicly claim his blood. But across the galaxy, warriors in black armor continued to fight. They stood on walls. They boarded enemy ships. They died beneath alien suns. They saved civilians whose names would never appear in histories. They obeyed an oath they could not remember making. And sometimes, before battle, Acastian Vey dreamed of a violet sky. He never saw a face. He never heard a name. Only a giant in bronze armor standing at the edge of a boiling sea. The figure would look toward him, not as a father, not as a Primarch, simply as one warrior looking at another. Then the figure would turn toward the horizon. Acastian would stand beside him. Neither spoke, neither needed to. When Acastian woke, the dream always vanished, but one feeling remained. Not memory, not blood, not history, duty. And that, he had learned, was something even oblivion could not erase.